So they go on and say, for reasons well beyond the scope of this chapter, man has awareness locked in the portion of his mind that makes his world seem solid, logical, orderly, and material. Save for a very few and special people, man processes all his data through this part of the mind. Because of this restriction, the information that enters our awareness comes with great distortion. It would be comparable to listening to a piano concert and being able to hear only the 6 center keys. And they suggest that you have someone who is proficient in playing the piano to play a song, but strike the key only when the note falls on one of the 6 center keys. It will leave you with great confusion and a very poor understanding of what the composer truly had in mind. And so they say, we assure you that the same is true of life as you know it. Without the ability to be aware of the full range of the mind, you will only see a shadow of what's going on. So here again, they're pointing out to you that there's more going on in your mind than you're aware of. And so the scientists say that you have that conscious, the subconscious, and the superconscious. They're saying that it's like a whole piano keyboard, and your awareness, your conscious awareness, not your awareness, but your consciousness, what you're personally aware of through your consciousness, or in that part of your brain, if you will, consciousness, that's the only part that you're aware of, and it distorts what's going on. That leaves you with the thought, I assume, or left me with the thought, I wonder what it would be like to be fully aware of the whole concert then, because if we're only getting a small part of it, that's kind of what maybe some of the more learned or more gifted people are saying, is there's more here than you guys are getting. And you really ought to get the rest of it, because it's really, like he's saying, the full concert instead of just noise. And then they go on. We tell you this not so that you will struggle to become aware of more of the keys, or in this case, more of the mind, but so that you know there is more. That more is just as valid a part of the mind as the part you know so well. As we said, your awareness is locked in that portion of the mind that deals with the logical, concrete, scientific, material things, with some of the right side intuition entering to the edge of our consciousness. We also said that in that condition, it is comparable to being able to hear only the center 6 keys of the piano. What are the other keys on the piano? What is happening in the rest of the mind of man? Remember, all the mind is valid in its action, even if we are not aware of what's happening there. And then they go to level 2, talking to the people that read level 2. What we need to do here is divide the information into 2 parts. In the first part, we will tell you what the full mind of man is composed of and how it differs from the animals. In the second part, we will explain how all this information gets or doesn't get to your awareness. The second part is written at level 4 and is very technical. It is for those who need to know. The point to remember is that all the information from the mind does not enter your awareness, and the information that does enter is distorted because you can't see the whole. We are trying to help you know that what you don't see, thereby helping you to know what you don't see, thereby allowing you to adjust your life's game to something closer to the real game of life. Get what you can and go on. And then they move to the next chapter, which is the animal's mind versus man's mind, and they're dealing with it at level 3. And they say, let's start with the lower part of the mind of man and work our way up through the higher portions. We will give the parts of man's body where each portion of the mind has its manifestation or expression. It should be understood that in the lower portions of the mind you will find the animal to be quite the same as man. And what they're saying here is that, earlier they said that the mind of man isn't the brain, and that the mind, it doesn't have a location, but that it does manifest itself, show up. If you modified the area, the manifestation would change, so it shows up in different portions of the body, or has its expressions in different parts of the body. And in talking
about the lower and the higher, they're talking about the animal functions as being lower, just by definition, I guess. And the higher functions more the persona or perhaps even the soul. And all of it's going on all the time, but you're only aware of, like the center six keys, as they say, you're only aware of a very small part of it. So what they're going to do is they're going to start with the lowest level, which is the animal functions of the monkey man that you're living in, and match them to the animals, and then show you where we diverge, where we separate, where we all of a sudden take off from the animal world and become aware of, or at least have as part of our mind the ability to be aware of those things that the animals don't have. So that we'll go on and show you what they're going to say then. On the lowest level of the mind, you will find those processes that control the bodily functions, such as breathing, heartbeat, digestion, and the like. These are, for the most part, involuntary and below our conscious awareness. They are the same for the animal as for man. Could a person become aware of those processes and control them? Yes. Some for the show and some for the side effects of the quest in quite another area. Still, for the most part, neither man nor animal know they are digesting food or renewing the cell. This process finds its expression in the primitive part of the brain closest to the spinal cord. So, as I said, they're saying the animal has bodily functions and man has bodily functions like breathing, digesting, renewing cells, and that sort of thing. We're not aware of those things, but they are going on. And they are part of the mind of man, just like they're part of the mind of an animal. And were you to be kind of an interesting thing, did you catch that where they said that could a person become aware of the processes and control them? Yes, some for the show, and you know what that means, for showing off, knowing that there are people that can change their heartbeat and show off doing it and so on and so forth. And some as a side effect of the quest in quite another area. Being able to control, well, the quest in another area is that quest for enlightenment, obviously. And sometimes in that quest for enlightenment, you do come to the ability to control your bodily functions. You can control your heartbeat. I mean, you can control your breathing, but you're pretty rare that a man can control his heartbeat, control whether he's going to digest food, control whether he's going to renew cells. Still, it is a function of the mind of man, and were you able to access the total functions of the mind, perhaps you could control those things too. Maybe that's where some of these legends of people that heal themselves instantly or lower their heartbeat or become in a trance, like don't breathe, the heart doesn't go, and are considered dead. Maybe that's nothing but the process of recognizing that part of the keyboard exists and having developed the ability to control it to some extent. So and you notice here that they said that part that they're talking about, the bodily functions, is expressed in the primitive part of man's brain closest to the spinal cord, which would be the animal brain, I guess. And then they go on. As we move to the next level of the mind, we find the very thing that we were talking about earlier. This is where the first, third, and fifth sources of emotion do their work. In the animal kingdom, their expression is found more toward the front of the brain, actually the rest of the brain, and other parts of the body not connected to the brain. In man, it manifests in the front of the primitive brain and behind the midbrain at the solar plexus and the heart area. All of the emotional influences are manifested here. Now, did you see where the difficulty will come as you're trying to understand this? Is that the manifestation of emotions isn't just in the brain. It's in the brain, it's in the part of man's brain between the midbrain and the primitive brain. You'd have to get to the structure of a brain to find out where that was. But it also says that it's in the solar plexus and heart area.